we tend to always struggle with the same thing, which is this fear I'm not good enough, or I'm not loved, I'm not lovable. For all of us, that thing is something different. But I think we can all relate to this false belief that I have to earn my love, and I'm only as loved as my last achievement. I'm only as good as my best or worst moment, or I'm not good enough. And I never will be enough. And so I have to do something to earn my enoughness. Every single day, the world is going to try to tell you you're only as good as your last achievement. And so you have to fight back. And every single day, remind yourself, I'm enough in Christ.
Well, welcome, Annie, to the show. I'm excited to have you on. I don't know much about you, but I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot more today. What I do know is you are a 4 times Amazon bestseller. You've written 6 books, a corporate account executive, and also the host of the Made to Shine podcast. And I know what's on your heart most is to prepare this younger generation to know just how much that they are loved by God. And one of the things that I was most curious about in our conversation today is what ignited that in you, that passion to want to reach out to this younger generation and teach them about the love that God has for them?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, so many things, right? I think that someone once told me, you're most qualified to serve the person that you once were. And that just kind of always stuck with me. I think because as a young girl, not to say I felt lost, but I think there were so many times I grew up in a Christian household, but you get to this point with your own faith where you're like, do I believe the thing because I believe it or because my parents believed it? And then you kind of, some people actually have that conversation with themselves. Other people just kind of keep living their life, not really asking themselves those questions. And I think as a young girl, even now with what I'm doing with the podcast and the books, it never started as I feel qualified to help other people. That was not it. It started as I need this for me. Like if I was to write myself some advice, if I was to journal, big journal, or if I was to journal about what I'm going through and how, like, do I want the Lord? Do I not? Like having these conversations with myself and speaking to myself. And then along the way, it kind of turned into this, not even like a excitement, like, oh, I can't wait to do this. It was more, I felt it was like a burden. Like I feel like there could be another girl that is where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And this could potentially help them to know that they're not alone. I think so much of my work and the burden I felt isn't to be the one that's like 10 steps to a better relationship with the Lord or 10 steps to confidence. It's more so just like a me too, like I felt so lost in my life too. And these were some things that didn't help me get rid of it, but helped me get through it and remind myself God is not the God in the business of eliminating hardship, but being the God that sits with you in the hardship, which is a much more intimate and powerful thing that God could do for us. And so I don't know, I just felt this burden. I feel like this upcoming generation, there's so many good things. There's so much strength, so much curiosity. There is so much availability to information, and
Too
like
much
never
sometimes,
before.
but
Oh, I mean, like never before kids can have access to the gospel. Like there's so much accessibility, but there's also so much flexibility, and there's so much straying from one thing to the next. And so I see like such opportunity with this upcoming generation in a way like never before to reach kids that are where I was, but also there is such a responsibility to like teach them about what is true, because there's only one truth, and that's God's truth. Like everything else is fleeting. And so, yeah, I think just from a young age, again, it didn't start as I'm the one that can help people. It was I know God helped me, and let's just write about it and see if that helps somebody else
sure.
from where I was.
So talking about that, you said you felt this burden to help somebody who is maybe where you were, a few steps back. Can you talk about where you were, some of the struggles that you were going through?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What wasn't a struggle? I
Mm.
feel like, so as a young kid, I was very introspective. That's how my dad would put it nicely. I would put it as sensitive, or my siblings would say I was very sensitive. I just always lived in my head. And I think that's
Mm.
because I struggled with just overthinking everything and people pleasing and wanting to make people happy. And because of that, at a young age, it was almost like anything that didn't make myself presentable as happy to then make other people happy, I hid. And so that led to kind of wanting to portray that there's nothing wrong in my life. The reality of it is that's not life. If you see somebody and it looks like their life is perfect, it's because they're either hiding what's not, or they're just not being true with themselves. And so for me, I was hiding what wasn't. And that came out in the form of an eating disorder at a very young age, and like wanting to fit for a girl what I thought was perfection, and like being acceptable in the world and being liked by people. And to me, that was an image. That was a body image. That was beauty related. Um, and then it kind of trickled. It's the reality of it is we tend to always struggle with the same thing, which is this fear I'm not good enough, or I'm not loved, I'm not lovable. For all of us, it just comes out in different ways. Like for me in high school, it was eating disorder. And then in college, it was like I played tennis in college. So it was like performance, right? Like being the best. And then when you get out of college, it's like in work, being the best performance wise, or making the best amount of money, or having, X amount of metrics. For all of us, that thing is something different. But I think we can all relate to this false belief that I have to earn my love, and I'm only as loved as my last achievement. I'm only as good as my best or worst moment, or I'm not good enough. And I never will be enough. And so I have to do something to earn my enoughness. And so that's really, and I feel like that's a constant struggle. That's a constant, it's like, that's one of the biggest things I get encouraged to talk to people about is when you find Christ and you know you're enough in him, it's not a one-time thing. I mean, yes, it's once and for all. You're always enough. But to remind yourself of that is an everyday decision, because every single day the world is going to try to tell you you're only as good as your last achievement. And so you have to fight back, and every single day remind yourself, I'm enough in Christ. And so, yeah, I think where I struggled, and it's still a fight for me, is reminding myself that like I'm enough, and not because of something I do or did not do well, or am not going to do. It's like I'm enough in God. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I
That's
was.
such a good message. And as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about all the ways that we are inundated with information, which, it's a double-edged sword. Like we had talked about before, there's so much information that can teach us things, but sometimes it's too much. But where I'm going with that is, advertisements like you need, this skincare, you need to look this way, or, we are
Yeah.
inundated with all of these things that we need to have in order to, be. But what you're really
Yeah.
saying is we already have what we need through Jesus and the way that he made us, and the love that he has for us is enough.
Yeah,
Just enough.
exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's kind of like, think of a shiny car. You know what I mean? Like a shiny car might seem great on the outside, whatever have you, but it's only as good as it needs gas in order to go. Like, what's the point of a car if it doesn't go? And to me, I think like the love of God is the gasoline. Like it's the
Mm,
thing that causes us to be able to go. And so many of us were trying to go and go and go, but based on our own strength without filling ourselves up. And
mm,
so you're not going to get very far. And like you might have all the shiny ornaments and toys, but like what is it if you can't go somewhere? And so I
yeah.
think it's just reminding yourself, like, what is your source? Is your source the like the shininess on your car, or is it the thing that's going to make you go? And the reality of that is like that starts within, right? It's not something you can see, it's not something you can touch. I think that's why we struggle with that so much, but it's
Hmm.
something that is within, that we all have access to. And not to say it's not good to try for things. Like God gave us gifts, like gave you the gift of speaking and like doing a podcast, and like similarly in my life. And like it's not to say don't try hard, it's just it's the order of operations. Like
That's so right.
are you going for it for love, or are you starting from love and then going for it? And I think it's just a different, it's very simple if you think about it, but it's not easy at all. At all.
I love everything you're saying, and they're all messages that have been like coming to me, and I love that when people are speaking the same language that I feel like are messages that
Yeah.
are speaking to me, because then that tells me it's coming from that one and only
Yeah.
source, and
Yeah.
we're all picking up on that right now. And
Mhm.
I love that you say, to come from a place from love. I get that.
Yeah.
You're not doing all of these things to get the love. You're doing it
Yeah.
out of the love, and that's enough right there.
It
Um,
is. Yeah.
so obviously you go back to your younger years, you're struggling with things.
Yeah.
Where was that pivotal moment in your life where you realized, okay, it's not about all of this anymore? Can you take us back to a pivotal moment when that shift happened for you?
Yeah. I think for me, what really changed is when, and this is the way I would describe it. I think like growing up, and I'm so grateful for my parents in this. They always like modeled to me a very personal relationship with the Lord. Like to me, I knew God was real. And my dad used to always tell me this, like, Annie, if God is real, which I believe he is, he's not afraid of your questions. Like, ask the hard questions. And that's something that actually, speaking of the younger generation, encourages me. I feel like we have a younger generation that is saying, but why is that true? Why is Jesus the only way? Why is he the only option? Like, why is, and you need to ask those hard questions to get real answers. And I think a lot of other people could learn from this younger generation because we're just kind of taking our parents' word for it or our grandparents' word for it. And we're not actually asking the hard question, but why? And when you ask that question, that's when you realize, whoa, this like faith in Jesus, it's not just Looney Tunes, it's not just a story, it's been tested. Like historically, scientifically, it has been tested. It's like it's real. And until you get there, and I say that because that's kind of where I was. It was actually funny enough. I mean, I had in college, I went through a really bad breakup, and it was kind of left with this feeling of, again, struggling with people pleasing my whole life, putting my identity and everything outside of me my whole life. I'll never forget, it was my sophomore year of college. I didn't make the lineup that year at my college for tennis. I had just gotten broken up with the guy that I was so head over heels in love with. And I very much was like, wow, all these ornaments I put on my Christmas tree of a self to define myself by are gone. And I'm just left with the tree. And is that enough? And it was through kind of losing everything that I put myself in, tales old as time, that I wouldn't say I found myself, but I found the Lord. And it was because I tried everything to numb out the pain. Like my friends wanted me to try to go party. I tried to go party. I tried to go on other dates with other people. And literally nothing worked. Like it was just like nothing worked. I still was left with this loneliness every night. And I don't know. It was on the church I go to now. It's Buckhead Church with Andy Stanley. I started listening to Andy Stanley sermons on my run. And I just was like, Lord, okay, like if you're really real, like I mean really real, like not just Easter Sunday God, like you're really real and it's a Tuesday. I can still talk to you, right? And I just slowly start to, it wasn't instant, but it was the only thing that I craved. It was the only thing that I was like, okay, it's not even an assurance that this is it, but I know nothing else is. And the way I would describe it is in the Bible when Jesus and his disciples were together, and Jesus basically said something offensive, right? As he always does to like the Pharisees, and all these people left him. And he turns to his disciples and he was like, are you guys going to leave too? And Peter said, Lord, to whom else would we go?
Mm.
Peter did not say, no, man, you're it. Like, you're it for sure, without a doubt. He just said, where else would we go? And I think that that's kind of where I was at, that the shift was at, was it wasn't, God, you're it. I know it. I can testify. It was just like, I, I have no other option. Like it's either you or nothing, because nothing else in my life has the power that you say you do. And so I'm coming to you because whom else would I go? And I
Mhm.
think sometimes like God can bring you to him in so many ways. I'm not going to limit the ways God can work in your life to the way he worked in mine, but the way he worked in mine was just, I had this feeling like it was just this resolve that God, I just know nobody else can heal me in the way that you say you can. And I don't know if you will, but like, I know that you're my only option. So here I am. And it really was, it was just like this surrender to, I'm really not sure, but I am sure that you're the only option. And through that, like my truly my entire life changed. Like it was no longer God was the God of Easter Sunday. It was like God's my God. And the way I dated changed, the way I was looking for friends changed. Um, I feel like the way that even like I carried myself and the way I spoke over myself and my friends and like God was no longer just this like, "Ooh, do I like talk about him?" It was like, "No, I'm praying for this person." You know what I mean? And it wasn't instant, but it was this gradual just looking back at the past 6 years of, wow, like I've
Mhm.
really changed and my appetite for things has changed. So yeah, that's what I would say changed.
So, when you're going through that, I'm just thinking about people listening right now.
Yeah.
When you went through that and you started to just rely on God, and first of all, Annie, I love your energy. I can
Oh,
just so
thank
pick up on it, and I can see where God is using you with this younger generation. It's like you're a few steps ahead of them, but
you.
you have this just spirit and happiness about you that I
Thank
think will
you.
just really speak to a lot of hearts. But I'm thinking of these people listening, and when they start to like dabble into, okay, God, who else do I turn to but you? And they begin to do that. It's not always instantaneous, right? So maybe walk us through a little bit of that process, how that worked with you. Like you
Yeah.
had said, just things started to change. Because I want people to understand that, sometimes God can touch your life and something does change in an instant. But I think
Yeah.
more often than not, it's this slow, gradual, turning of the dial to where we get more in alignment with Him.
I think, and this is something that I, by the grace of God, like had people he brought in my life to help me kind of reorient this thinking. Cause, and this is kind of why I get so passionate for this younger generation. And even, let's be honest, we are all still kids. We are all kids. We might put on adult clothes and go to adult jobs, but we are all still children of God. So whether you're 4 or 45, I think that it's still the same. The reality of it is, we have been wired. We live in a world that conditions you to say, like, it's metric based thinking. It's how long is this going to take? What is in it for me? Like, give, get. If I give you this, I get this. And we do, I think, a lot of times start with God that way. It's like, I'm going to pray to you, I'm going to come to you, but what can you get me? And what can you get me as it pertains to my specific request? And that might sound super harsh, but I think that if you really zoom out, that's a lot of our prayers is, Lord,
Mhm.
I'm struggling with this. When are you going to help me with this? How do you help me with this? Like, when's the last time, I'm speaking to myself here, that you prayed and was just like, Lord, thank you for you. I don't have a request. I just I just want to be with you. And when's the last time we prayed like that? And so from the minute that when I say it was a process, I think the reason, again, if you would have told 20, I just turned 27. So if you had told 21-year-old Annie that, hey, you really weren't going to get a good understanding of why this was happening or how God was going to heal you until 6 years from now, I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's like a third of my life. Like, that's crazy. But the reality of it is, at the time, what people taught me to see is you've got to start with who God is, not what can God do for you. It's who is God. And when you start with his character, not that you understand what he's doing in your life or how he's going to do it, you release the need to. And what I mean by that is when you know God is good. I think about my dad. I love my dad. I have such a good relationship with my dad. My dad drove me to all those tennis tournaments like every weekend growing up. So like we got so close. And I knew after a while going to tennis tournaments, I didn't even ask him how long it was going to take or if he knew the way. I trusted his character. I knew my dad was a good dad. I knew he wanted me to be on time more than I wanted to be on time. So in the beginning, when we were first starting, it was like, okay, dad, it's at this time. Are we on track? Are we on track? But eventually I was like, I know my dad's a good dad. And I know
Mhm.
whatever I care about, he honestly cares about more than I do because I care about it. Now, did that mean that we were going to go the exact route I wanted and weren't going to stop at like 60 Tractor Supplies and Co's? No, we were absolutely going to stop at Tractor Supply and Co. and all these like tractor stores because that's what he liked. But we still got to the match on time. Why do I use that analogy? Because I think that's how, when you mature in your relationship with the Lord, and that's what I get passionate about with this younger generation, God isn't a genie. It's not, let me ask him for 3 wishes and he's going to give them to me. It's so much better than that. God is a God that said, like, I love you so much and I care more about what you even think you care about, and I designed you so I know what's good for you, that I'm willing to go the route that might be longer but is in your best interest. And guess what? I'm going to be the driver. Like, you're not going to be the driver. I'm not going to give you the GPS. I'm going to be right in the car with you. And so, but you can only trust where you're going if you know the character of the driver. Like, if I put you in the car with someone you didn't even know, you'd probably be on edge when I was like, just go. We'll see how you do. But if you were in the car with your best friend or your mom, like think about your kids with you, Olivia, like your kids trust that you know where you're going and that it's going to be good because you're their mom. And so I think like you've got to start not with the question of like, Lord, how long is this going to take? Or can you do this? It's what's your character? Like, actually ask the question, what is God's character? He's a good father. What does that mean? He loves you. Before you were born, he set you apart. He knows you. When you start there, the way God's changed my heart, at least, is it kind of surrenders the need to know how he's going to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but I know he's going to do it. It being not my idea of what it should be, but like what God knows it's going to be because he's a good dad. And anything I could imagine for myself pales in comparison to what he has for me. And so I think we just, anxiety's plaguing not just this upcoming generation, but every generation. I think because we're trying to figure out the how. When we don't need to know the how, we need to know the who. So I would say, like, for anyone literally in that moment, it's start with who. Who is God? Just start there and like see how that softens your heart.
I love everything you're saying. And it's so funny because yesterday I was just having a conversation with my mom, and she is my spiritual mentor. And we had this exact conversation to some degree. And she kind of likened it to what you were just saying. And she just said, we have to focus on just that God just loves us. And she goes, it's like if you told your children that we're going to go to Disneyland next Tuesday, they'll just be excited. Okay, we're going to go to Disneyland next Tuesday. They're not sitting there going, well, how are we going to get there? What time are we going to get there? And what are we going to do when we get there? They're just going to be like little kids. Mom, dad said, we're going to go to Disneyland, and, they're just going to rest and trust in that. And it's not going to be figuring out all the semantics. And so I just kind of love that I'm smiling as you're saying all this, because it's all just, definitely resonates with me. And I think a message that people need to hear. But
Yeah. Well, and can I say something to that analogy? Because I love that. I'm a big analogy girl. That's how my brain works. I wasn't good in school, so I had to come up with analogies to learn material. But like even to use your analogy of Disneyland, like a young kid, the tree is Disneyland, right? But as you get older, I'm sure when you think about memories with your mom, you start to think, wow, the true treasure there is I got to go with my mom. Like it was the time in the car. It was, and I think that's the telltale sign of the maturity of a believer is that it's no longer Disneyland that gets us excited. It's just being with God in the car on the way. And like it's those little, you know what I mean? It's like it's no longer worshiping the gifts, it's worshiping the giver. Like God, if as long as I'm with you, I don't care if we're in Disneyland or Idaho. Like it's gonna be awesome because I'm with you in the car and we'll get some snacks and it'll be great. And like I think that's when you're really maturing in your relationship with the Lord, is your appetite is no longer for the things God can give you, but like God, I need you. Like I just want your presence and I want you to be here. And like you crave that stillness, not the like trinkets that distract you from him, So
Girl, you
yeah.
speak my language. I love it. I love
Yeah.
everything. So, speaking of like the younger generation,
Yeah.
uh, it's a world that is, I guess I need to learn how to speak English first, but
Yeah.
I feel like our world is full of pressure and comparison, and it's so easy nowadays. So part of your message being made to shine. How do you encourage people to confidently shine when they're so surrounded by comparison?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. One, I think you have to remember there's a quote that I love, which is that we were all born originals. Many of us die copies. And the reality of it is, like, especially this younger generation, I think that when you're so busy just looking at these standards of beauty or success or what it means to be a man or what it means to be a girl and a woman, and like, and then also the mixed messaging in the world right now. It's like you don't even know what's true anymore. And I think, one of my favorite scripture verse, I've like, my last book was written about it because I don't know, my fiance got me pillows with it printed because it just means so much to me. Is Jeremiah 1:5. Like, before I formed you, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. The reason that verse means so much to me is because, like, God, think about it. Like, God, before anyone else could have their hands on you, before like your mom could even look at you, like, God knit you in your mother's womb. That's another verse in Psalms. But like, before you were born, he set you apart. He called you known. He called you valuable. He called you all these things. And with that, like, when we have God's spirit in us, even in Genesis, you look at the order operations of how the world was created. Like, first was God, spirit, Jesus, but then there was light. God created light. Like, we literally, our nature is light. We come from light. Light was always a part of us. And when we accepted Jesus Christ into our heart, we got his spirit, we got his light. But that all to say, we are all made in the image of the Lord. Uniqueness, what's the way? There's a preacher that once put it. I think we confuse equality with uniformity, in the sense that, yes, God loves us all equal, but we weren't made the same. We weren't made to be uniform, right? Like, we are all so different, and we're different sides of the Lord, and we're different reflections of the Lord. It's still the Lord, but we are made so uniquely. And if you get so busy watching somebody else's light shine and the way God designed them to shine, I think what it does is it discourages you from thinking that your light is anything special, and that your light is worth showing to the world, and that you shouldn't be seen because it's not going to look like theirs. Guess what, honey? It's not going to look like theirs, but that's the point. And I even think about, what we do. Like, I have a podcast, you have a podcast. I just get so passionate about this. I hear a lot of the like younger people that I speak with, I hear them say things like, well, there's already a podcast out there, or there's already a book written, or there's already a scientist. There's already, like, who am I? Yeah, well, God fashioned you to be passionate about that thing. I could say something on my podcast. You could say the same thing here on your podcast. In the way that it hits the world and hearts of your listeners or my listeners, so different, just because God made us different. And if I thought, well, Olivia's already said that like 1,000 times in a way that's so much better than me, I'm not going to say it. There could be 100 or just one person that might not change because I didn't have the guts to shine my light. And so that's why I get so passionate about it, is because it's like, God did give us a light to shine. That's going to shine out of us when we know him. You know what I mean? It's like our face will just reflect it. But it's having the courage to be seen. It's having the courage, and I think the wherewithal to know a lot of times our light shines the brightest when we're broken, because when you're broken, there's cracks for your light to shine through. And it's having the courage to let that be, to break in the way that, you're going to break in this life, and then let your light shine in the way it is in the avenue God called you to. But if you get so busy looking at somebody else, it's not going to come out in the way God designed you to.
Yeah. I feel inclined to share this, and it's a teaching that that I also provide. But when I go on my walks, that's often my quiet time with God, and that's often where I get messages. And on a walk one day, I'm just looking at a tree, and maybe this would help anybody that's dealing with, that imposter syndrome, or feeling like they can't be a voice because somebody else is already speaking that voice. But you look at a tree, if you can visualize it, and you've got this trunk, and actually even below the trunk, you have these roots that you can't see. But you have this trunk. And off the trunk, you've got all these different branches. And off the branches, sometimes you have the twigs. And off that, you have the leaves. And if you were to look at, and I'd taken a picture of it, I wasn't prepared, otherwise I would have put it on here. But if you take a look at that branch with all of those different leaves off of it, your leaf might be right next to my leaf. So we're kind of saying the same thing, and it resonates with us, but you're just over here on the branch, and I'm over here on the branch, and we're kind of speaking the same message because we come from the same source of that trunk and those roots. But we're all just tuned a little bit more to a different dial. And I think if we start to think of ourselves like that, we can see that we're very similar, and that's why certain things that you're saying so resonate with me, because we're probably really close leaves on that branch together, but we each have our own different way about saying things and
Yeah.
different voice and different audience. And then the other piece with that is that if we step back and we don't share, we're holding ourselves back. And a message that's been coming to me this year is we are stronger together. So don't
Hmm.
hold back because somebody else
Yeah.
is doing it. If it's on your heart, God put these desires in our heart and we're meant to bring those to fruition.
Yeah.
And so don't sit back and be quiet. Allow your voice to shine so
Yeah.
that together we are all stronger, and
Oh, so good. I
yeah.
love that. What actually came to mind when you were saying that was Paul. I love Paul. I think literally in Galatians, Paul writes about like I was not educated and did not walk with Jesus, but yeah, I'm here. I am. I can relate. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I did not go to seminary. I'm never going to pretend like I did. Like there are people that actually studied the Bible and all this, but I just love talking about Jesus and like. But I think that Paul, what I love about Paul is what if he compared himself to Peter? Peter, the rock, Petros. Like, what if he was like, I didn't walk with Jesus. Peter did. Who am I to? We wouldn't have like a majority of the New Testament if if Paul was so busy comparing himself to Peter. What I love about Paul's in Galatians, he's like, God trusted me to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. Peter, he wanted to go and continue to convert Jews, but like he trusted me. Like Paul had a mission and he knew his mission. And if he got so busy comparing himself to Peter, he would have been like, well, darn, why didn't God trust me with what Peter's doing? Because I think that's what we do, right? Especially with other believers. It's like, man, does God love her more? Because he's trusting her with all this stuff where I'm like, but it's like, no, God gave you something. And it says Jesus like will run after the one and leave the 99. Like it's like, are you willing to preach like you're going down tomorrow to just one person and to shine your light to just one person? Because the reality of it is that's what we're called to do. Is like you change the world by like changing your world, and you change your world by shining your light and letting the spirit take care of the people in your orbit with that. But if Paul was so busy looking at Peter, he wouldn't have written the basically most of the New Testament. That's wild to think about, but that's the cost of comparison. And I just think,
Mhm.
man, like what things are we missing from this world because the cost of comparison is so high and the price we are paying is so constant and consistent because it's as easy as pulling up this and it's
Yeah.
just sucking hours of our day when you could be creating the thing that God tasked you with, or finding out what that is.
Yeah, everything you're saying, just I am so in alignment with. Earlier, you had mentioned about this generation and that they're so curious, and that's such a good thing, and they are free to ask questions like, well, how do I know God loves me, and
Mhm.
how do I know that God's love is real? How do I know that God is real? Um, what are ways, as you speak to the younger generation, what are ways that you can help teach them those things or
Mhm.
teach them to find those answers out for themselves?
Yeah. Oh, great. I always say for me, and I actually learned this in my corporate job a couple years ago, like when you don't know the answer to something, do not pretend like you do.
Yeah.
Because one, and again, I think it's like it doesn't feel good in the spirit to like pretend like you know something that you don't. But also two, it's not doing a service to anybody. So for me, I encourage like when I speak to the younger generation, one, I think it's starting with like being okay with asking the questions.
Mhm.
Like even so with my church, it's pretty cool. You can volunteer with a grade level for the entirety of that segment. So for example, middle school. I work in or volunteer with middle school. So it's like 6, you're with them until they graduate and go to high school. So I did it. I did one round and then I now have 6th graders again. And even this year, them coming in, it was almost as if asking, is God real, is a bad word in church. It's like, what do you, of course he's real. Of course he's real. But it's like, how do you explain to a 6th grader it's okay to ask that? Because in
Mhm.
order to know, you have to first ask and not, putting questions in their head to make them question things they already believe. Not that, but just saying if there's questions about like, well, what do you mean Jesus died and rose again? Like, what does that mean? And this Buddhism thing that someone in my class is talking about, how does that fit into this? And like, you got to be honest in saying like, it's okay to ask questions. That's so good. God loves curiosity. I mean,
Mm.
Jesus asked so many questions. The Pharisees would ask him a question, he would ask them one right back. God loves questions. And so I think it's one, being okay with asking questions. And then two, I mean, practically speaking, I think that I always like to just say, listen, the reality of it is like, you're going to hear a lot of things. You're going to probably go through a lot of seasons of questions. What I know to be true from what I've looked into scientifically, historically, is that there is one way to God, and it is through Jesus. And so ask yourself those own questions. And when you're ready, here are some things that I looked into that I would really encourage you to look into. I don't think it's hitting them over the head with a 6 hour long lesson. I just don't think that that's what lands. I don't think that that's what people are asking for. I think what people are asking for when they ask you that question is more so just the sense of your own conviction. It's like, do you believe God's real? That's what they're really asking. And that's what you should be speaking to. And it's like, yes, 1000%. And I know Jesus is the only way to him. And that's truth. And that is what is true. Now, for you, I want you to believe that as well. But I know you're not going to believe that from listening to me in a 7 minute conversation. So that pegs the next step, which is like resources. Honestly, a huge resource in my life. He was actually, this guy was on my podcast. He's a dear friend. His name is Jimmy Wallace. He wrote a book called Cold Case Christianity. So Lee Strobel is another awesome guy that is one of his good friends who wrote Case for Christianity.
Mhm.
And so love that book. And like Case for Heaven, Is God Real? Lee Strobel's books are amazing. So all that to say, I like give them those resources. I say, I would start here. I would start with this book. I would start with the Bible Project online. If you're more of a video person, like I would start with these resources, because what I love about especially Lee Strobel and Jimmy Wallace is that they were atheists. Like they came into looking at the Bible. I mean, Jimmy, he's like the best dude ever, but he was a homicide detective. He literally studied murders, and he wanted to disprove the Bible, very similar to Lee Strobel, who was a journalist. And so I love reading their accounts, because literally their accounts, what they have in these books is what they wrote as someone trying to disprove Christianity, and they couldn't do it, and they became avid believers. And so I think it's not just, I guess my point here is when people ask you that question, it's just speaking to your own conviction and then giving them a resource that can help them go build theirs. That, and of course, I mean, I think the reality of it is, it's just first starting with being okay with asking those questions yourself. Because if you feel the need to make sure someone believes something in a 5 minute conversation, maybe it's because you haven't done the work to, well, I'm not going to say this to put that on anybody. I'll say for me, when people used to ask me that question, I would get really fidgety, like, of course God is real, like, of course he is. It was more so because I didn't have resources to point them to, because I hadn't looked into those resources yet. And so I think that's the biggest gift you can give somebody, is the first steps in their own journey of figuring it out.
I totally agree. And then let's just say that one final question. Let's just say that somebody already has that conviction, but maybe they're just looking for what are some things I can do to grow closer to Jesus, and how can I incorporate him throughout my day? Do you have any tips for the youth or anybody at any age on how they can do that?
Yes. This is something that's an everyday intention for me. I think what I've realized, even recently, like just being so real, like I was looking at a friend the other day and I was like, I just feel so busy and distracted. I feel like an octopus on rollerblades. Like there's just a lot going on and no progress. And like I feel like that's my life. But I feel so busy, and even in the morning when I'm with the Lord, I just feel like it's like I'm trying to get something. I'm trying to get that next revelation. I'm trying to get that, like, God, what do you want to say to me today? And it's almost like it's metrics driven. It's like, did he tell me something today? Did he not? And it's like, whoa, okay. So I think you know, I will be the first to say, I think the Lord works in people's lives in so many awesome ways. Like, I know one of my best friends, the way she communes with the Lord is not the same way I do. Like, she loves to travel and nature and blast worship music in the car. And I mean, I love that. But when I really get still with the Lord, it's like I'm still. I am on my couch. I am with the Bible or not. I'm just talking. Like, it's not, I can't have like anything going on in here. So everyone's different. I think though, whatever that is for you, you have got to protect it. You've got to protect it. And it does not need to be for 6 hours long straight. It can be pockets here or there, but have things that like, I don't want to say trigger because I feel like that's a triggering word nowadays, but it's a trigger. It's like for me, when I'm in the shower, trigger, talk to Jesus. We're not thinking about our to-do list, talk to Jesus. In the morning, I just do it for 15 minutes, right when I get up, quiet time, trigger, shower, trigger, car, trigger. It's like, set aside pockets of your day. Priscilla Shire once said when she had babies and was super busy as a mom and had like no time to herself, she would literally take index cards and just stick them on parts of their house, like the cabinet where she would do their lunch boxes, the laundry machine. And she would just go to these places and be like, okay, God, I see you. I hear you. I needed that verse. And like, protect that, whether that's proactively putting scripture verses places in your car, or just protecting that time. But I would say no matter if you're in high school or you're 60, you can do that. You can find a place, a time, and protect it and make it intentional and consistent. So that's what I would say, to bring the Lord in, because the Lord's going to be in whether you want him to be or not. It's just our awareness of him with us. It's not like he leaves us when we're not thinking about him, but it's just our awareness of him being there with us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Everything that you're saying, I think you were just the perfect guest today because everything that you're saying, I know that's a message that God's speaking through me. And I just feel like it's in alignment with everything that you're saying today. Where can people go to find you and connect with you?
Yeah. Instagram is where I would say I hang out the most.
Hmm.
But I mean, podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, books, anywhere you get books, YouTube for my podcast. So yeah, I would say just anywhere you think about streaming a podcast or, I'm not on TikTok. I did that intentionally. I just was like, you know what? Again, do not need another distraction in my life. So that's the one platform I'm not on, but I do hang out on
Yeah.
Instagram a lot.
Well, I'll make sure to put some links below. You know what? I said one final question before, but I'm
Yeah,
going to lie and I'm going to go retract that and ask one more.
do it.
Um, because this is near and dear to my heart. When we start these intentional practices, so like one of the things I do is, before I wake up, even if it's for 30 seconds, I do not want to reach for my phone or even get out of bed. Or sometimes I do start, in the beginning, I would get out of bed and I'd be like, no, 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 go back, lay down. And I would have my moment with God and like just talk about the day. And so oftentimes when you start these new practices, your mind starts going, right? Maybe you start talking to God and all of a sudden it pops in your head, oh, I forgot I need to go do this. Or how do you turn that off?
Um, it's a great question. I once heard a preacher put it like this because it's kind of a lot like prayer, right? We're talking about prayer. We're talking about like prayer,
Hmm.
communion with the Lord, whatever have you. I'm the same way. I start praying and immediately my mind goes like beep, beep, beep. It's like a pinball machine in there. And I once heard a preacher put it like this, like, let's say you have a lake house that you haven't been to in a while. And you go to a lake house and you turn the water on the faucet and you haven't been there in a while and it's like, it's gross, it's brown, it's muddy, like it. But eventually, you keep letting it flow, it gets clearer and clearer and clearer. That really stuck with me because I think so many times we shame ourselves when the water's muddy when we first turn it on. It's like, no, that's expected. Let it keep going. And when I say let it keep going, I don't mean wait 6 hours until it's fine and clear. We don't have time for that. Like you're a mom, you're a businesswoman, you're a dad, but I mean, just being okay with it being muddy at first, being proud of yourself for turning on the faucet in the first place. And then again, we're called to pray without ceasing. You're going to keep praying throughout your entire day. It will get clearer and clearer and clearer as you continue your day. And that's the point. And that's why we're called to pray without ceasing, because God knows you're going to turn that prayer on. It's going to be muddy water at first. And I don't want you to stop when it's first muddy. Keep going. Keep going. Don't shame yourself. If you shame yourself, it's like turning it back off and then turning it back on and it's muddy again. And that's where a lot of Christians live their prayer life. It's like they turn the water on, it's muddy, they turn it off because they think they're doing it wrong, and then they're in that cycle. It's like, just let it be muddy. Let
Mm.
it. And then to just be committed to keep showing up and praying. I think that's where you see it's that pre-decision, it's that pre-commitment, and it's that surrender to meeting a metric of what prayer should look like. Oh, this is cool. I'll leave you with this too, because this is on my heart. Um, I heard another Megan Marshman, she's amazing, but she also said too, so many times we shame ourselves when our minds wander during prayer. Like you're praying to the Lord and then your mind wanders to work or your kids or packing the lunch boxes. And she was like, don't shame yourself for that. Where your wander goes, that's what you're treasuring in your heart. And
I
God
heard that
wants
too.
your heart. That hit me so hard. I was like, wow, all this time I was trying to shut off the wander. It's like, no, let it go. Cause that, like, so every time I pray now, I say, Lord, I pray you turn my wanders into wonder. And I
Mm.
give you all of my wanders today. Cause like, I want them to help me wonder more about you. And once I start praying like that, it's just acceptance that whatever comes will come. And like, but I gave it to God. Like, I'm going to start thinking about my work, maybe this podcast, maybe my podcast, but like, I gave it to God, and just letting that be permissible, it frees you up to letting your prayer turn clear.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time today,
Course.
all your
Thank you.
wisdom, and really just your spirit, your joy, happiness, and
Thank you.
energy. I like I said, I know you're going to touch so many hearts,
Thank you.
and the message that you have to share with this younger generation and probably all generations,
Thank
I
you.
think is going to be very special.
Well,
So,
and
so
thank you
glad.
for what you're doing and like being obedient to God's light in you and shining it. Like, it's really cool to be on a branch with another leaf, you know? I
I
love it.
agree. I agree. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. And if you liked what you heard and want to be inspired with more faith building and uplifting content, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow. Have a great day, everyone.